If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel for more content. The link is in the description.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
Time travel. It's a popular science fiction plot, but what about real time travel? Could such a thing really be possible? In 2000, an anonymous poster by the name of Time Travel Zero began posting on Art Bell's forum post to post that he was from the year 2036, an alternate timeline in which civil unrest had sparked a limited nuclear exchange. He was assigned to a government time travel program and sent back to 1975 to retrieve an old computer, which he stated was to fix an issue in 2036. In this episode, we dive headlong into the time travel and into the multiverse theory as we try to understand this tale and other possibilities, including aliens from the future. This episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. I'm here with your hosts, Ron Lanham, Jessi Doyle, and of course me, Joe Perdue. And we've got a great show lined up for you. We're going to dive into the news first real quick, and then we're going to go on a time-traveling voyage into the past or future or both.
All at once.
All at once.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So let's get over that news desk. Let's do that in this timeline right now.
Yeah, right. So first on deck is really cool. We just had the Wood Booger Jamboree.
Wow.
And we're recording the day after the show, and we cannot thank you guys enough for coming out. It was a great success. We had multiple vendors actually sell out of their stuff, and that was awesome. We had fantastic, seriously, the best barbecue in Southern West Virginia.
Joe, I just want to talk just a second about Wood Booger. I went up and I did a little bit of I tried to make a little video. I made a little video, but I tried to go out and get some footage of this. And I walked up on the hill and I looked down. And I remember when I was growing up and we would go to the fair. And I always loved I've always loved the fair, and it always, made me happy and whatnot, right? So, I go up there and I look back, and this was an event. This was like that. This was like looking out over the big parking lots at the fairs. This was a true festival. And it really, literally just absolutely blew my mind at that point to see that many cars, those food trucks, hear those generators running, and see this tent city that has popped up out there. It was amazing. For those who didn't make it, be there next time. You're going to want to be there next time. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, it was an absolute blast. And check this guy out. This is I think he's like right around 10 inches of felted magnificence. It says, I was spotted at the Wood Booger Jamboree, and that's just too cool. Somebody actually made this.
That's awesome.
To have on their table. And that was too cool. And
yeah, it was a fun time. Everybody had a great time. They actually
was that the same felt artist that was at Wild and Weird, or a different felt
no,
artist?
No. This was another felt artist. And
Seth was
there. Seth was there, and he sold some stuff. And
because I have a piece I think from Seth, that I got at Wild and Weird. I have it over here on my shelf. It's awesome. Like these felt artists are really neat, like what they do, and it's such a really cool process of how they do it, and then create these beautiful sculptures. So
yeah,
I do some intricate stuff, but that is one thing I will not do. That is some serious. Yes,
it takes patience on a scale that I just can't muster.
It is really something. But
this is This is mine. It's sorry, I just hit my desk.
Oh, I
Oh,
remember that one.
wow.
You bought that?
Yeah, of course. You think I'm
That
gonna
is
pass
so
up a goat in a
cool.
robe? Look at this thing.
See, we were wondering where that one went because we saw it when it was there, and then when it was obviously you bought it.
Wow.
To my
as it was leaving.
collection is where it went. Yes.
Yeah, that is so
So,
cool.
yeah, this thing is beautiful. It's
They're
on my
amazing.
it's part of my art collection. So
They are amazing. And the felt artist, you hats off to you. I don't wear
Yeah.
a hat, but if I did, hats off to you. Joe, you have a hat? Do it for me. Hats
There
off
we
to
go,
you, felt
guys.
artists.
all right. So you want to talk about the news?
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back in the news. We've got there was actually two pieces here, and we're going to go all the way back into prehistory, doing some time travel ourselves. Actually, 5 miles from my house, there was a turkey hunter that was out doing some spring gobbler hunting, and there was a flash flood that had occurred the 2 or 3 days prior, and it actually stripped some blue silt out of the hillside, and it exposed a nearly fully intact giant ground sloth skull, and it was insane. And they got it verified, and now there's probably going to be some expeditions run out to that area to look for some more bits. And speaking of prehistoric stuff and expeditions, many moons ago, we covered the discovery of one of these hobbit creatures here on Wild and Weird Radio, and it became known as Flores Man. It was found on the Isle of Flores out in Indonesia. Fast forward to today. Now, anthropologists and a couple zoologists are starting to come into agreement that Flores Man might not be extinct. That means that we may not be the only surviving human species on the planet. And if you go back to when we were talking about the Flores discovery, we referenced a video, and we put a link to the video. Back then it was purely audio. But we put a link to the video so you guys could go look at it. And it was of this small, maybe 3.5 foot tall humanoid that jumped out of the brush in front of some dirt bikers, bolted.
I remember that video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bolted down the road, around the turn in the road. The motorcyclist chased it and caught up with it. Right as he made the turn around the curve that it went over, it looked back over its shoulder again and dashed straight into the brush. And this, for it was like over its head, thick brush, and it was moving so fast that it was like it was obviously something natural to it. Like it was not it wasn't uncommon for it to be able to dash through thick brush like that. That video has yet to be debunked. And moving again forward to today, some anthropologists had studied this Flores Man for some time, and an author just published a book called Between Apes and Men, in which he actually spoke with a tribal member that said that he had actually found and buried a dead creature, and that it was small, and it was covered in a light hair, and it didn't look like, it wasn't a monkey, and it wasn't a man, and he believed it to be the Obugogo. And because the Obugogo is what these tribal people call their little man of the woods. And it's starting to, the possibility is actually being seriously looked at that this creature could be real and still alive today. Now, just for kind of getting away from the news for just a second, what kind of implications do you guys think that's going to have on Bigfoot research at this point?
That there's a possibility that something has been, living in remote areas and thriving and obviously carrying on. and nobody has proof of it being there. But now, it's been there, and it's been just evolving or existing alongside of us at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And they don't have proof of it up until this point. You can't say that you know everything. You know that of every animal that exists. You know that, I know that we can find plankton that's new all the time, but they're like, oh, there's no way that this, this, like something like a Sasquatch could live and we would never know it's there. You have something that's 3 feet tall that's living in remote areas that we didn't know existed, that now there's a possibility that it's there. That kind of opens up a lot of doors, actually.
That it does.
Yeah, it does. It really does. It harkens back to early human development. Humans wouldn't venture into caves because they feared that it was the passageway to the underworld. It was the realm of the gods. They feared those places, right? So you have to think about it. These little guys, they don't venture into our world, probably because we're a far superior intelligence, or, they fear us. We're just more superior, and they know that there's a possibility that could do them in, the same as our ancestors believed that if they went into those caves, something far superior could do them in. So it just shows that there are so many possibilities of these things existing that we just, they're around us and we don't even know it. They're just clever. I think that's the greatest part of it. A little bit I've got in the news. There was a bill that the New Jersey legislature proposed. Bill A4060 was proposed, and it establishes a scholarship program for graduate students and postdoctoral research studying, of all things, unidentified aerial phenomena and extraterrestrial technological signatures. Now, think about that last part for me for just 1 second. Technological signatures. They want to create a higher education establishment grant for a program of $250,000 to make this an actual course of study. We're talking about looking for techno signatures now. We're not just talking about looking for lights in the sky. We're not talking about just looking for these accounts of contact. We're talking about techno signatures, and we're not just talking about SETI either.
No, it's gone beyond that. We're now putting together this higher education program.
Yep. So it's been really, really, really taken serious.
I mean, we launched Space Force. Well, I mean, obviously the government is starting to take this stuff seriously. So the fact that there is now a division of the armed forces that is in development right now, the Space Force, that should let you know that, yes, even though they don't outright come and tell us, they're doing a lot of stuff that is indicating that there is definitely something going on.
Yeah.
I just wanted a side note here. You mentioned that giant ground sloth skull that came out. I was like, how big is a giant ground sloth? So
big.
Oh my God. So the Megatherium, it's the size of a freaking elephant.
Yeah. It's our state fossil here in West Virginia.
Yeah, that is huge. It's the size of a modern day elephant. Can you imagine that big, beautiful, slow-moving, claw-handed, cute giant sloth? Anyway.
Yeah,
well,
Fallout
it's
76
possible.
actually has it in the game, by the way. So you can actually, and it's to scale. So it's pretty cool. It's one of our really cool things. Again, West Virginia has these amazing things.
Yeah, that was like one of the last megafauna, that's pretty neat. Knowing the mountains of West Virginia, there's probably a couple still up there. So,
well, there's the possibility in South America, they claim to see these creatures quite frequently. When you start getting into Central and South America in the rainforest and jungles, there are people who will describe these large, upright creatures, and they're often mistaken for like Bigfoot-like creatures.
Yeah.
But they describe these massive, long foreclaws, and they're describing a ground sloth is what they describe.
Yeah.
And they're getting reports of those today.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Little last story we've got here. And this was reported in the U.S. Sun that there is a new little TikTok trend going around. I know you kids love the TikToks, but that a lot of people are looking on Google Earth and they're finding a lot of really, really anomalous things. That that someone found a Bigfoot walking through the woods on like Google Earth view and everything. People are finding giant snakes. One giant snake was debunked to be a sculpture, but there was another giant snake that actually looks pretty legit. So have you guys seen this trend going around right now?
Oh yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I haven't seen it, but you just gave me a wonderful idea for a next art project. So thanks,
okay.
You know, this trend isn't really anything new. It's new on TikTok, but you know, there's been people who have constantly searched on Google Earth. They've found murder sites. They've found large unexplained crafts underwater, or something that looks like UFOs, or even and some actual plane crashes and sunken ships.
Well, let's not forget the giant alien face in Antarctica.
Right.
Well, we're going there, so
yeah, that one happened too. And you know, so this is it's really neat seeing some, because some of it is very much pareidoia, but then there's some that is just, well, you just literally found a murder scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to close out the news with one final story, and we touched on this in our little thing, but for those who didn't see it or who were on a different planet or a different timeline, apparently there was this thing called a hearing on UFOs and UAP phenomena last week. And one of the great revelations during this whole thing was when the witnesses were asked about the Maelstrom nuclear base incident, in which the nukes were shut down because a UFO was over the area. And they had no idea what they were being asked, and basically feigned that they had no clue. The highlight reel on that is very good, by the way. I'll link to that, and you can watch the whole exchange here, because it's just fascinating. These were defense personnel and officials, and they had no idea about these incidents. They weren't asked to investigate them in an official way, is how it went down.
The way they tried to gloss over it, they said that they hadn't been asked to specifically look into that event
officially. Well, they've been asked officially now, so let's see what happens.
And right? Well, what that tells me is that you have looked into this event unofficially. That's what that tells me. Right. You weren't told on the record to look into this. You still looked into it because it was there. And you drew conclusions, and you're just not comfortable going out there and saying that this was a huge breach of our national security, and we had no control over it whatsoever.
Well, folks, that's going to be the news for this show, and I guess we're going to be off to the future, right?
Oh, yeah. It's time to get wild and weird and dive into this really fun topic.
Wild and Weird 3038 or something, 2038. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, there it is.
We've got a really, really interesting show for you guys. We've teased about it in the past more than once. And coincidentally, it is Back to the Future for John Titor.
So go ahead and give us a rundown on exactly. Well, you know what? Whichever one of you does it, I don't care. Flip a coin, but tell the audience who John Titor is, because honestly, I'll bet they know, but they don't know.
I think you're right. Jess, you want it, or do you want me to do it?
No, you can go ahead.
All right. So John Titor is, and like his name is spelled Titor. So it's like Titter or Titor. I just say Titor because that's how I've heard it in the past. Mm-hmm. But he used a pseudonym online back in the early days of the internet. This was all back on Art Bell's Coast to Coast forum that they had.
Is that Post to Post?
What was it?
Post to Post.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Post to Post.
And this was his pseudonym was Time Travel _0. And this started back around, it was late 2000 and went on into 2001. And he claimed that he was part of like an American military time travel organization, like that he was part of a division that specialized in time travel. He even had this insignia that for whatever reason he drew instead of actually taking a picture of the insignia and sending it in. But we'll just do with that what you will.
As one does when one is a time
Right.
traveler from the future.
So he claimed to be from the year 2036. So technically, I guess we're really going to find out if he saved the future, or also if he was, not telling the truth in like 14 years. So either way,
maybe
he made all of these predictions, right? And he started jotting them down on the forum there with Art Bell Show. And then it was on episode 323, I do believe. You can go back and actually listen to it. We'll post a link to it in the description. But he actually went on Art Bell's show. He called in and he started giving these predictions, and it was like these 6 parts. It is how he laid everything out, and it was a trip. Some of the stuff he was right on, but the main reason he had to go back to when he did was originally he was sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer. And for whatever reason, that IBM 5100 is the key to destroying the Terminator. That's how we break Skynet. So, Jess, remember that whenever we're in the post-apocalyptic commune trying to take over the AI?
I'll keep an eye out for one at the local thrift store.
Yeah, so it seems that there's some kind of technology in these old IBM 5100 computers that's going to become very valuable in the very near future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, it's kind of like when you think about like electromagnetic pulses or using EMP weapons that cars produced prior to all of these computers being put into cars, that they are the key to surviving that or getting past that or being able to transport yourself if there's like an EMP or anything like that. So it's kind of like the same concept that prior technology maybe has the capability to get past future technology.
And with this IBM 5100,
don't you dare insult or confuse the timeline. I mean, we have to be.
We have to keep the timeline streaming properly.
Yes, exactly.
We don't want any variants being created.
Right, not in this reality. That's correct.
So basically, the reason he was sent back specifically in 1975 when the IBM 5100 was being created is because I think it was his grandpa or his great-grandpa that actually worked on this specific console. And that was the secret to solving the Unix 2038 problem, was whatever the components were in this old computer. And what Jess referenced with the EMP and having these pre-computer vehicles, like personally me, if there's an EMP large enough to knock out the power grid, I'm not going to be very concerned about motor transportation as much as I am going to be concerned about the radioactive fallout.
Well,
speaking of,
it
fallout.
could be something else besides fallout, couldn't it?
Yeah, we
could be looking at a solar event.
Yeah, you're right. It very well could be some kind of a solar event that would do that as well. That's very possible. In which case, I would redact my computerless car comment. That's going to be really valuable.
But that's the beautiful thing about the multiverse, Joe. We can just jump into any possibility and ultimately say we're right.
Yeah. Right.
Or wrong. Or both at the exact same time. Sorry.
So now we're going to fast forward this from 1975 after Titor allegedly collects said IBM 5100 to the year 2000. Do you remember that sketch?
I do remember that. That was very bad.
Right. It was one of my favorite sketches, though.
It was.
Anyway.
It was one of the things that I could actually listen to from Conan. So
yeah, it was pretty good. So anyway, he stopped in the year 2000 for personal reasons.
As again, one does when they
Yeah.
are hopping through Tom.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
he actually stopped to go to a Britney Spears concert. So
Probably, yes.
yeah.
you know, I'm sure that
It was the
in
hot
2038,
years, so yes.
Britney Spears doesn't look quite as good as she did in the year 2000, so
No,
it could be
no.
a viable option.
Yes. Sorry, Brittany.
Leave Britney alone.
Yeah.
So now so first off, this is like the first internet hoax ever, right?
It could be, yeah.
Allegedly. Wait a minute. You're assuming that this is a hoax and not a piece of reality.
Right. Or
I'm not convinced.
B, this dude actually was a time traveler, and he's not the only time traveler we've ever experienced.
No.
You know, there have been multiple people, especially multiple people who've appeared on Coast to Coast AM.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
that
for sure.
claim to be time travelers, and
during our time traveler episode, I mentioned like a famous case of a supposed time traveler who was coming back that called into Coast to Coast AM and discussed his time travel and how we can save the planet and how he was sent back to help, increase global warming and a part of all these different teams and all of this. So if you guys are interested in that story and kind of my rundown on that story, refer back to our time travel episode and you can check that out and get kind of up to speed on another really famous guest on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Yes.
I mean, it's so popular, guys, that there's actually, the website, timetravelinstitute.com, which is where a lot of these are now.
And the Titor Foundation.
Yeah.
There was a whole foundation that was created and dedicated to John Titor.
So in a way, regardless if it's fake or not, it's real now. It's been created and it's manifest itself in this reality, right? So that's the weird thing again about quantum realities, guys.
It was a very, very odd time, because he described, unlike some of the other time travel experiencers, or not necessarily experiencers, but time travelers themselves, these time lords, so to speak, they didn't quite come to specific terms with how they time traveled. They just claimed they did it. However, Titor went on to actually create a list, and he posted it on the forums. And he said, "Now, Ron, I need you to start writing down parts, okay? We're going to need to make this DeLorean-like thing." And it takes 2 magnetic housing units for the dual microsingularities.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, okay. An electron injection manifold to alter mass and gravity of the microsingularities.
I know a guy. Hang on.
Yep. You can hold Dave.
No, I'm going to hold Travis.
Oh yeah, Travis. Travis will have these parts. You're right.
Yeah, Travis will have these parts. He has them up at the.
Those will be there at the deep end. I guarantee it. We get back in that storage unit.
Okay.
That's probably why the storage unit's so weird.
Oh, it is. What else do we need?
So then, next on the list is a cooling X-ray vent system.
Wait a minute. What? What's that?
Yep, a cooling X-ray venting system.
Okay.
You got it.
Cooling X-ray venting system.
Next on Doc.
This is getting expensive.
Yeah, it is really getting expensive.
We might have to do a GoFundMe after all.
It very well could result in that. A gravity sensors.
Oh, okay.
Or if you don't have the gravity sensors, there's an or here. A variable gravity lock.
No, the gravity sensor will be a lot easier to find.
I think so too. I think that'd be easier to find.
I'll get a hold of Bob Lazar. Okay, go ahead.
I'll add you. Now, the 4 main cesium clocks. Yes, cesium clocks. That's CESIUM clocks.
Okay, so that's another thing for Lazar. Got you. Sure.
And,
Okay, what else we need?
So for those of you who do not like study particle mechanics and particle physics,
I mean,
the
who
CCM
doesn't
standard
do
is a
that?
primary frequency standard to which the photon absorption by transition between the two hyperfine ground states of cesium 133 atoms is used to control the output output frequency.
I think everybody fell asleep about 45 seconds ago. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. So the very last part we're going to need are the three main computer units. Good luck finding which computers, but three main computer units.
Now, to be honest, you guys are pretty SOL on this, even if you sourced all of these strange materials, because a gentleman by the name of Marlon B. Pullman filed a patent for these machines in October 1st of 2004. So a patent has been filed. So, you know, and the patent application included identical images to those posted by John Titor online. So the patent has been filed. So you are late to the party, pal.
Or you can do it now, go back in time before the patent is filed, and file your own. That's what we're here for, guys. Little bits of advice like that to help you circumvent these strange quantum anomalies and navigate yourself around the multiverse.
Well, on top of this, I don't know if this is like a requirement, but it's definitely a want for this device. Instead of a DeLorean, which is stylish in its own right, we would be requiring a 1966 Chevy Corvette convertible, and this thing, this unit, much like a DeLorean, would the Energon cube that we're going to be making will set in the back.
Isn't that the thing that Coulson drove around in Shield? Didn't he have a Corvette?
Coincidentally enough, I do believe it was.
I mean, check that. Viewers, anyone who's actually watching this, who's a sci-fi geek like us, I'm thinking that that's what Coulson actually drove in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, the hover car that they actually converted.
Hold on, we're going to find out right now.
If that's
it is
the
a
case,
1962 Chevy Corvette.
Oh, so close.
So close. That's probably why we haven't heard back from John Titor, because he put it in the wrong year car.
That's what it was.
Well, I mean, photos surfaced later. John Titor posted photos of his time machine equipment in a 1987 Chevy Suburban. So we're looking at, I mean, obviously he's a Chevy man. But yeah, so it looks like that there were multiple vehicles that this was put into, or perhaps going back to the multiverse theory, that different timelines created different situations, therefore different vehicles were used for housing the time machine equipment.
But it was still a Chevy.
But it's still a Chevy, man.
But that is still consistent with the one version of the multiverse theory, in that the changes are not massive, but they are very, very minuscule, but they are still changes. So that actually does come into play with the theory of the multiverse. So again, I'm not convinced either way yet. You're going to have to do better if you want me to believe that this guy isn't a time traveler from the future.
It's going to be very very difficult to until we get at least up to that point to really disprove some of the stuff, because he did make some rather persuading arguments about some events that were going to unfold in the future, and that he would be leaving, and once he left, that those events wouldn't take place because he'd be able to fix the future.
Sure. I mean, that's the whole thing, though, right? John said that, in his future, and it's important to respond, that's in his future, in his reality, these things took place. There was a civil unrest, there was civil war.
Yeah, and that was in 2008.
That was in 2008.
2008, yeah. That was due to a presidential election that just went sideways, and in his words, quoted, would have a Waco type event every month that steadily gets worse and would pretty much be at everyone's doorstep by 2008.
So once again, all these little differences occurred along the timeline. Not major ones, but little ones.
Yep.
Yeah, he was just off by a few years. So.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, it kind of seems like okay.
The reptilians got stopped by him
Not
for
convinced.
2008. They made up for it though.
I'm not convinced that.
So John Alexander showed up and stopped him. That's the only reptilian that I really know of. You've seen pictures of John Alexander, right? From the yeah. He looks like he is like the person that you can look at. I know that we think most politicians are reptilians at this point, but you can look at John Alexander and know that that man is a reptilian. Just look at his snake eyes, friends. Okay. Not to mention he was best friends with General Aquino too. So that's a whole other kettle of fish that we're not going to get into. But back to Titor.
Back to John Titor.
Safely, we digress.
Well, he like we're saying, he's not the first person to have claimed to come back from the future that was this post-apocalyptic world. So, like, do you think that they're just screwing it up? Like, they go back, it's like butterfly effect that, some possible time traveler would come back in time, stop their future from being an actual reality, but then just create this other problem.
A spiraling event, a catastrophic runaway event that threatens the linear progression of time as we know it.
Kind of like the last episode of Loki.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One of those kind of scenarios.
Where the branches of the timeline. Yep. Well, what's really funny about this is, it's funny yet it's not funny. Is that it's a device in sci-fi now, right? I mean, but really the multi-world, the multiverse, what was the name of the actual first thing? The mini world interpretation, the MWI model. That goes back into the 1800s philosophy.
The 1800s. That goes back.
It goes back
Greeks.
It goes back to Greeks.
Yeah.
But it was actually thrown into our modern science lexicon. It's real. At least it's a real philosophy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, and I'd like to touch on that for just a second too, Jess. The Greeks. How did the Greeks know about multiple realities, multiple worlds?
Yeah, you had a school of thought called it was the atomists. Okay, it's a school of thought that the world was created by this collision of atoms, and that with every collision, a new and infinite universe was spurred off of it. And this is a big philosophy, and it was basically the Stoics versus the atomists. So it was a big philosophy in the Greek in Greek history. And so that's what kind of was the first recorded instances of this multiverse theory coming to light, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, to me, that's superior knowledge from a superior source, and I'll leave it right there for now.
If I had hair, I'd mess it up real bad and sit here like this.
I'm just saying, you can't. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, well, that looks like an airplane, or this thing flies, and how could it exist 3,000 years before? But we're talking about a theory that's so advanced that how did they come up with something that we're just now starting to basically grasp? Like, you don't dream that up.
Yeah.
And if you do, someone put it in your head to make you dream it. Someone or something.
It would take a whole lot of thinking
for
something like that to pop up, or something to see something that would cause you to think something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with this whole time traveler multiversal phenomena that we could possibly be experiencing.
Yeah.
What kind of repercussions would this kind of have? Like that, you're going back, you're saving one universe,
Mhm.
so to speak, saving a timeline, however you want to put it. You have to think that there's going to be some fallout from some of these things. Like, this is all theoretical, 100%. What kind of equation would you have to work up to be like, okay, I can go do this, but I can't do this. I can change this piece, but I can't change this. I can't touch this.
Can't touch this.
Duh.
I had to do it. I had to do it.
We were discussing earlier how this kind of relates to the paranormal field and the cryptozoological field, that you show people evidence, or you talk about these experiences people have or stories that people have, and they come at you with that this is not possible, this is completely out of the realm of possibility or anything like that. But in the end, it's all perspective. And what is going on even in the universe and the established universe we have now is what you perceive to be occurring is not necessarily what someone else is perceiving to occur. So we were talking that the cat, my cat is sitting on the back of the couch watching me make dinner. Last night he went and got a bunny out of the forest. He's like, why are they doing this? They can just run out there and go grab a bunny out of the forest, and eat that. So it's perception, and your perspective on it is everything. And then on top of that, you can think of, that somebody has these experiences or sees these things. Maybe they see them and then something was spurred off into another infinite universe. That's why it's so strange that there's so many people that will buy into the multiverse theory, but then they completely discount any sort of paranormal things occurring.
Right.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And if we really want to go into this in a way that'll make you kind of understand the possibilities of John Titor and some of these other meddling time travelers from the future, what we can look at is the possibility that some of these so-called UAP, UFO contacts are exactly what that is. There are those who believe that they are from the future, that they are us from the future, who are trying to put right things that once went wrong, as Quantum Leap once put. And so by doing so, like you said, there's a spiralizing effect. So once you fix one thing, it can cause another thing to go wrong, and so forth and so forth. So you have to keep jumping around and fixing these things. Or there's multiple time traveling troublemakers who are trying to offset each other and cause mass chaos on their own ways. And all these little events that they're manipulating are spiraling out of control. And, we have today. I mean, you do have that possibility, and you can't really deny it. I used to deny the whole, aliens or time travelers thing. I really did. I never really thought too much about that. But much like, the whole abduction phenomenon in general in the beginning, I never really believed in that either. But the more stuff that goes on the table, the more I have to say, I got to look at that, because I can see that. And we have had contacts who have said that.
Yeah.
The Rendlesham Forest event, for example.
Well, if you look at the physical descriptions of what we know as alien grays, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It is what looks like a way far future flung version of what humans would look like if we continue to evolve like we are. Large heads, large eyes, hairless, large brains, weak bodies, like smaller bodies, but larger brains, larger heads. It seems like it's way forward in the future of what we would look like if we continue to evolve in the way that we are, with the advancement of technology, less demand for physical activity, and it just kept evolving in that direction. So that kind of like feeds into that theory as well.
No, you're 100% right. I
Right.
mean, and we're seeing that take place, aren't we? We're seeing all these little things that these people have said, wow, the aliens are us from the future because something happens to the human race and they can't procreate in the future, and something makes us sterile, so they're coming back to fix things, and
And that's been a long-standing theory. Like, that's nothing new. That's been around.
It's not. The terrifying part is that now we can see things that could possibly justify those beliefs, whereas before we were like, well, that's science fiction.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, guys.
You've got fertility rates dropping currently.
Yeah.
As Jessi said, there was actually an anthropologist, and I don't know if you've seen these images, but there was an anthropologist that was doing some theoretical work based on human evolution, and just projected that in the next 100 years, what humans will look like versus what they look like now. And our eyes were
they're bigger. Yeah.
were bigger. They were about 10% to 10 to 15% larger, and our heads were larger, and we were more pale.
You know, the shocking thing about that is that the 10 to 20% ocular region is also what is commonly recorded in the elongated skulls. Yeah.
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 And it's also this direction that some folks are headed into, like seeking a sexless society, in terms of like no gender, no sex, anything like that. When they describe alien grays, they're often just sexless beings, you know.
You have like Ken dolls walking around.
Often, yes, often.
This, I gotta tell you, the future sounds like a total bummer. Like it sounds like a bummer.
I'm right there with you.
If that's what it is. I like the Venusians myself. I'm just partial to Venusians, you know.
Venusian man.
Yeah, the Venusians are cool.
I dig Crescent. I mean, she's far from sexless.
Well, yeah,
Crescent,
I mean,
is like,
you know,
while
we've actually gotten off into a weird parallel universe theory of our own here. You know, let's touch on that for just a second, because that is interesting too, Joe. In the beginning, our contactees were reporting all these humanoid-looking contacts, right? They looked like us.
Yeah.
And then they changed. Well, did they change because they were messing up the timeline and they evolved different, or did they come from a different?
Oh. It could. Like they could. Somebody saw something and now technology advanced.
Right. Exactly. Maybe they weren't supposed to do something that they did, and you know, who knows? One of these AI bots, you know, it transforms into the future and turns into Commander Zorp's great, whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at this point, like,
could it be?
Could it be? That's the question. Could it be? I mean, probably, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's looking a lot like could be. Honestly, especially if you follow a lot of those accounts with the time travelers, and they have these post-apocalyptic issues. Some of them revolve around technology, some of them revolve around wars. Actually, there's been one that was like an alien invasion.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. Then you've got other time travel theories that revolve around these contactees, where they say that they're us, that these beings who came in contact with them, they say that they're us from the future.
Right.
And like you had said, those they didn't procreate anymore. They couldn't.
So isn't it kind of cool to think about that the John Titor story, that he's coming back in time to find this old analog computer, and these aliens are coming back in time to find this old analog people to grab to save the future, you know?
Think about it. I mean, we're talking about the same thing.
We are the computer that they're trying to get from the past, right?
Yep. We're talking about the same things again. I mean, you know, whether it's a totally made up story or not, these lines are very parallel to each other in the actual story and the scope of the outcome of it.
And it's been used a lot. You know, the tropes from these stories have been used in our pop culture now. They've been modified into television, movies, podcasts, and you know, if speaking of, if you are a time traveler and you would like to come on the radio, just give us a call. We'd love to have you on.
Yeah, for real. No joke there, for real. I'm not convinced again that there aren't such things. So, you know, time travelers, time traveling aliens, you know, whatever. Come on, give us a call. Come on. We'll set you in here. You can fit in. You'll fit right in with Wild and Weird Radio.
So yeah. Now back to Titor for a second.
Yeah.
He claimed that at 13 years old, in 2011, he was 13. So that means in 2000, when he was here, he was 2 years old. So he could have like snuck up on himself and like pressed the reset button if he wanted, but he didn't. And but anyway, he says that he joined the Fighting Diamondbacks, which was a shotgun infantry unit in Florida, and that he had been with them for the last 4 years, and he described himself as hiding from the war. So he was a time traveler trying to stop the war, and then also using time travel to hide from the war.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that particular part in America hadn't really been a huge thing, but it had a lot of resonance for folks who watched the BBC. You have in
You're talking about the Time Wars? Is that
I'm
what
talking
you're
about the Time Wars.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because the Time Wars wasn't a new addition into Doctor Who. Like, it was part of the lore from the get-go. And so that was talked about way back in I think it was the 60s and 70s. So this was something that he would have been aware of at this point.
Right.
And so there's some people who will see these little parts of his story, and they can pick them apart using modern day pop culture at the time. But Titor also claimed that the Everett Wheeler model of quantum physics, better known as the many worlds interpretation, was in fact correct. And we had just talked about the many worlds interpretation.
And that's why he would mostly say if his predictions didn't come true, it's because there was a change made, that this maybe had happened in a different timeline or a different existence and not this one. So if these predictions didn't come true, something must have changed between then and now, and it could be affected by him or someone else, but something could have changed that way his timeline where he experienced these things was actually just null and void at that time, or diverged in a different direction, or something like that. And so he's got that fail-safe there if his predictions did not come true, that, it's the multiverse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's either the multiverse or he saved the day, one of the two.
Right.
And but at the time, I mean, back then, that was a pretty novel idea.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there weren't people going on talk shows, on daytime talk shows, making these kind of proclamations. You didn't see this kind of stuff. He was pretty much the first, you know?
And like with every cult leader, you've got some sort of doomsday scenario that would make cult leaders, you know, anytime you have a cult, you have a cult leader, the person that is a very, cult of personality, human person that is, everybody is drawn to them, but they've got to keep people there, and they've also got to have some sort of urgency to the situation. So with a lot of these cults, there's a doomsday clock going right now. If you don't join up, if you don't do what I say, then your everlasting soul is doomed, or you're going to die in the great, clone war or whatever it is. And so the cult leader will put that doomsday clock into effect, and then these clocks always tend to run out. I know that with the Heaven's Gate Marshall Applewhite, they punch the clock, So, but with a lot of these cults, these leaders, the clock runs out, and they have to come up with some kind of excuse or some kind of reason. Oh, well, it's because of this. They tend to lose some followers at that point, but then new ones come in, and the diehards will stick around. But it's the same kind of concept as that, is like that there's a doomsday clock here, and that, you got to stick with me, stick with me to the end. So
she's right. It's always a dire thing, and it's the same thing that makes the Terminator. It's the same thing that, makes all these great stories. It's the same thing that made the Valiant Thor story relevant as well, right? I mean, it was all, we've got to stop this impending thing. Well, how do you know that it's going to happen? Are you a time traveler? I mean, they all seem to have some kind of a look into our future, and then there's this need to change it.
Yeah, well, it's that hidden knowledge, that hidden or forbidden knowledge that only one person can possess. And that's what gives that person a level of power over people and over
Mhm.
people's what they do, and so, well, if I do this, then I will, anger what happens, and I will cause the downfall of society. So at the end, it's a control thing, right?
Yeah.
Wow, you're right. Yeah.
So it was 2018 or 2019. There was a guy that actually came forward and claimed that he had been like a consultant for the John Titor project, thinking of and putting project in the sense that it was a literary game
Okay.
being played on the internet.
Okay, so a live action role play kind of thing that
Yeah,
people were enacting. Okay.
right, that it was a LARPing thing, and he was a consultant on it, and he had actually created his own LARPing, like online LARPing game called Ong's Hat, and he said that it worked as a storytelling game where basically you could create your own persona. You throw out a line basically, and that you would then create this persona or these realities. Basically, you the writer would open their mouth not knowing where it was going to end. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Like they just started talking,
It's
not
like an
knowing.
improv theater kind of
Yeah,
thing. Basically.
very improv-y.
Yeah.
And he said that he was a consultant on the Titor project, but it wasn't his project. Like he wasn't the one that did it. But somebody who had seen what he was doing at the time wanted to essentially go outside of this Ong's Hat universe and do their own little play with John Titor and the Time Travelers. So they went on to the
That sounds like a band, John Titor and the Time Travelers. I'm just
right.
Add to
right.
It. Sounds like it.
So with I have a question though with the Titor thing is what would be the motivation? What is the payoff for this? What is the goal here? So you talk about, what could happen in the future, what's going to happen in the future. What is the goal here? What would be the end game for anybody who's doing this? Just to F with people online, or would it be that they're trying to influence behavior in one direction or the other? What would it be?
Well, I think if you look at it and put it in the cryptozoological realm here, let's look at example of Bob Hieronymus. He's basically a carbon copy of what this guy, if he's telling the truth or not, whatever it is.
Yeah,
it's a similar thing. Like Bob Hieronymus says that he's the guy that was in the suit that Roger and Bob filmed.
Maybe he was in a different universe.
Oh, but this guy's saying that that he was a consultant now for part of this project, so to speak. What the motive would be, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess the looking at it, going to a site that would be prone to buying into it, because a lot of people think that Art Bell would just believe everything, right? They think that he literally sat and believed everything that these people told him because that was his interview style.
Yeah.
He was there to create media. He was there to create stuff. So he wasn't going to shoot these people down. Art Bell was the master of drawing a story out of people. And the best way to do that was okay and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he let the witness or the guest speak the majority of the time. So looking at this, it could be, I mean, it's plausible. What he says makes sense to a degree. If it's true, I mean, that kind of thing could play out. He went to a website that was full of people, just like in these Bigfoot groups, Dogman groups, and it was the equivalent of them posting a blurry picture. And everybody was just like, oh, yeah, I see this, I see this, I see this. But this character was telling a story and everybody was just eating it up. and
Okay.
saying, okay, well, and then what? Drawing more and more out of the story, and then he would get more elaborate as it went on. But like it didn't go, I don't think, as expected, because there was more like it didn't get super outlandish. It stayed kind of in the realms of reality, except for the fact that he was a time traveler. And I'm not saying like I say in the reality of like currently we can't time travel that we know of. That was really the most outlandish thing he was saying, because all of his predictions were well within the realm of possibility if there was any kind of civil unrest that hyper escalated and turned into some kind of civil war.
Yeah. Well, there was fracture maps that had already been drawn up. So that was kind of a well point of knowledge that people already had anyway. A lot of preppers had that if there was a civil incident, that the United States would be broken into certain sections and factions and whatnot. They even went so far as to use some of those sections and factions, I believe, on Revolution on the TV.
They did.
TV show,
You're right.
Which was one of the best. I'm sorry, one of the best sci-fi shows that NBC ever did, and I'm still very angry that it was canceled. But I think that there's a possibility, though, that we could still see more of this Titor thing. The internet makes things famous, and it seems to make things famous in cycles.
Yeah.
So it would not surprise me if we see, a really big resurgence of the Titor story in pop culture, much like we see, the comics and whatnot. I could definitely see this.
All it's going to take is one of those predictions to be moderately close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still, if you watch History Channel late at night, well, I don't know about now, but I know that, when I used to watch History Channel a lot, I mean, you'd still have Nostradamus documentaries.
Yeah. Yes.
Especially, when 9/11 happened, you had right after 9/11 happened, you had a slew of Nostradamus
Revelations.
coming
I
out,
remember that very well.
talking about the two brothers, and and it would just be
all the doomers.
The doomers. Yeah.
And you would apply all of that to everything going on with September 11th and then the Iraq War and everything like that. So, all it would take is a couple of things that could be applied to John Titor's story, and that could easily just come out and, again, we'll get a slew of documentaries about it. So it's going to cycle through again and cycle through again. There's probably going to be another figure that comes out in the next few years that it is a John Titor type figure. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, absolutely not. These things are cyclical, and like you said, ratings. Let's be real. If they can find something that's going to pique the interest, then they're going to go crazy with it, and there it is. But some would argue also that there are some time travelers who are actively involved in Hollywood at this point, and some of those may be the creators of The Simpsons themselves. Matt Groening may have some writers on staff. I don't know, but
The Simpsons predictions are
terrifying. They're terrifying, is what they are. They're absolutely terrifying. If there's any possibility of evidence of time travelers, they are probably working for The Simpsons.
And like speaking of The Simpsons, one of the things that like nobody mentioned, at least none that I've seen, about The Simpsons is that from like when I was a wee lad watching the very, very first Simpsons Halloween special on its first broadcast, and we get the aliens. Those aliens were like octopus. They had tentacles.
Oh yeah, I remember
and
that.
The helmets and stuff. And then it was like 2 years ago, a lot of scientists were saying that octopus aren't from Earth. And here, like,
oh yeah,
even minute things.
Yeah, just little things that we shouldn't have known.
Right.
There is definitely an anomaly. There's probably a whole show that we can do on just the
Simpsons
and the predictions. Yeah, probably.
I think a lot of this, this alternate timeline stuff is really a big topic of discussion right now with everything that's gone on in the past, I'd say 5 years, about 5 to 7 years, that everything's been so wild.
Well, it depends on if it's 5 or if it's 7.
Right.
Universe
5, 6, 7, yeah. But everything's been so wild, and it seems like the crazy is accelerating. You've got all these people who are like, this is the best timeline ever, so you got a lot of references to that. in memes and stuff right now, and that's been going on since I'd say like 2016 is when that started really, really ramping up. About mid 2016, when all the memes and everything were like starting to get really crazy. And a lot of people say that this crazy timeline where we have Donald Trump as president, where we have COVID, where we have all of this stuff, lockdowns, and then all of this crazy stuff coming true, that 10 years you would have never predicted that all these things would be going on right now. A lot of people say that this timeline was really kicked off when they shot Harambe at the Cincinnati Zoo. So there's just the concept
butterfly effect.
Yeah, well, there's this concept of alternate timelines and weird timelines. That's kind of at the forefront of what's going on now, because people keep talking about, I love this timeline. This is a great timeline, or this is the worst timeline.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like it's coming a little more forward in internet culture. The concept of that there are alternate timelines and alternate universes where this happened or that happened or this didn't happen.
That plays into the Mandela effect too.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, probably why it's one of our biggest and highest rated episodes that we've ever done.
Yeah.
The Mandela effect. And by the way, the LHC,
I think it was so highly rated because it's the only episode we've done that I wasn't on.
It's possible. Yes. The LHC is firing up again. So we're probably going to see some more ripples in time, aren't we?
Or
maybe
That's the CERN thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened like when the last time they fired that up was when 2016.
That was when this all started.
Yeah. So that's another thing is they fire up that damn thing, and then that.
Why does Titor tell us not to fire this thing?
Yeah, I believe it was fired up first in 2012, and then it went down, and then they turned it back on again, and then they shut it down again, and now they're making it more powerful. They'll shut it down again, and then they're going to make it even more powerful, I believe.
Didn't they do some weird ritual?
Oh yeah.
Oh dear
around
Lord.
it, yeah.
Yes, we covered that in the episode, and it's
okay, yeah, that's
it's frightening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're like Ron said, they're getting ready to fire that baby up again. So let's just see what spellings get changed and what people are alive or dead in the timeline after they turn it on.
I'm predicting Mothman will come back and turn it off and just shut the whole thing down.
I have got my fingers crossed for Mothman.
Yeah.
Well, like an upset neighbor, he's just gonna come and play it and go.
He's gonna fix things. That's what he does.
No.
He's gonna fix He's coming to fix things.
Just shows up and just turn it off.
Yep.
Turn it off now. I don't want you guys back in my universe.
Hey, Indrid Cold, he was the searcher, right? I mean, so maybe he was searching for time travelers who were messing up the future. I'm just saying all things are possible at this point, and I don't discount anything. You guys, I've gotten to the point now, I'm going to be just like some of those guys in Congress there the other day at the UFO hearing. I'm going to be just like those guys. I'm going to be like, oh, you're telling me this? Okay, well, you're going to need to prove to me that it's not true at this point, because I believe it is true. So at least it's possible.
Yep. So like you said, man, they're firing up CERN again, and this is after they found the warp bubble.
Yep. Well, whatever it was.
So I hope we're not combining a warp bubble with this whole.
Read the room, folks. Read the room.
Yeah. It is. I just don't see good things coming from it, man. The last time they fired it up.
This could be great for the cryptozoology business. Who knows? Because we keep clashing all of these timelines and all these multiverses and these, dimensions. Yeah. We keep doing that. We don't know what we're going to open up. We don't know what we're going to get. So I don't know. I mean, this could be. It could go gangbusters for the crypto.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Open a few portals, these things come through. I mean, it's kind of like at the Ghostbusters, when Winston was like talking about the, or not Winston, Egon was talking about the giant Twinkie. Yeah, it's the giant Twinkie. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Maybe we're looking at another Twinkie episode.
Oh man. Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be a mess. I'm not excited for him to turn it on. We could get Titor. Titor might come back.
I don't know.
Titor, if you're listening, if you can hear this episode in the year 2040 now, come back and save us, man.
Yeah. It's, I guess, a call out to all time travelers who are out there trying to fix things. We're with you.
How do you know that this show won't be banned in that era? Because Ron has been arrested for alien war crimes at that point. Who knows?
Who knows? Anything's possible.
He is some interdimensional war criminal. You think they're going to allow this filth on television or radio? Absolutely not.
It's complete propaganda. They're saying these bad things about me. Don't believe them. It's not true. None of it's true. None of it.
Yeah. An alien war criminal would say things like that, wouldn't he?
Nope. I've been advised by my intergalactic lawyers.
The council says no.
The council says no. The collective has decreed. Oh man.
Maybe that's why I made the collective after all.
Maybe. So this has been a pretty fun episode. We're gonna have to do another time traveler episode where we start compiling some of these other time travelers and just kind of feature their story. I think that'd be fun.
I just want some time travelers to come on the show. I'm issuing a actual invitation to anyone who thinks that they are a time traveler, who are time travelers. We don't care. Contact the show at the address right here somewhere. I don't know. It's here somewhere. Contact the show. We'll get you on. You can tell your story. No one's going to laugh at you. I mean, if they do, they're probably reptilians.
Well, guys, this has been a fun show. Thanks. I just want to say thanks to everybody who's listened to us now for officially over 100 episodes. Thank you guys for tuning in, week out. You all are awesome, and you guys are exactly why we do this show. Also, huge thanks to everybody who showed up at Woodbooger Jamboree this past weekend now.
Ever.
And it will be happening again. We're looking at dates for next year. It was a big success with the community. They loved it. They wanted to come back. So we're going to make it happen. And it was great. And
bigger and better. Bigger and better. There were a few little issues, but we figured them all out at this point. And we have so much feedback from the community. They want it, so they get it.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed Woodbooker, but we're definitely coming. We're starting our big tour of going to a convention every month in August. So
nice.
So we've got something coming up in August. We've got Mothman in September.
Yep.
We've got Wild and Weird in October. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun fall. So.
And then November is CryptidCon.
Yeah. Yep.
It's going to be a fun-packed fall.
I hear that Willie Nelson on the road again playing.
I know, right? That's coming, man. It's coming. Back on the road. We got a brief reprieve for a couple months, and then we're back at it again. So, guys, again, like I said, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you all, especially the folks that are tuning in on YouTube, and get involved in the comments. We love talking to you guys. We like hearing your opinions, and all those 5-star rating reviews that roll in from Apple iTunes. Those are awesome. We appreciate you guys. The people who look us up on Facebook just to say, hey, we listened to the show. We love you guys. Y'all are awesome. And again, like I said, we wouldn't be doing this without you. This is episode 101, and it is it's been a blast, and thank you guys for letting us go on this ride. So Jess, do you want to take us home?
That was pretty good. I'd say that was pretty make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe all of the Wild and Weird radio episodes. We really appreciate you guys watching. We can't thank you guys enough, but make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you comment below. That also helps us get in front of people because the algorithm will pick us up the more we interact with y'all, so that's great. Also, make sure that you turn on your notifications, and if you're listening to the episode on a podcast aggregator, make sure you download the episode in addition to listening to it. That helps us as well. Make sure you check us out on all of our socials and check out what we're doing and our latest little projects we're up to. I am at Hellbent Jessi on Instagram. Joe is at Skinwalker Sculpts, and Ron is at Lanham Ron. You can also go to wildandweirdwv.com, join the forum, and check out all the cool stuff that's going on and all of the cool events that are coming up that the Wild and Weird guys are going to be attending, and I'll be attending some of those too. You can check out my website at Hellbent Holler, and then of course go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hellbent Holler. It is youtube.com/Hellbent Holler. I am this close to 5,000 subscribers.
Wow.
So
Get up there and subscribe to Hellbent Holler, guys.
please get us over that 5,000 mark and check us out. And I appreciate everybody who comments on my video and everybody who has emailed me with all of their really cool stories. You would not believe some of the emails I've gotten over the past 3 or 4 months. So as always, we love you, we appreciate you, and you guys got anything else?
I got this.
Oh.
In the year 2000, in the year 2022, you will like, listen, and subscribe to Wild and Weird Radio. And go along with us on this intergalactic, multi-dimensional ride. And we'll enjoy every minute of it. Stay wild and weird, everybody.
I'm going to go build a time machine so I can fix that crap.